Welcome to the Impact Multiplier CEO podcast. If you're a chief executive, or if you think like one, and you want to create exponentially greater impact, then this show is for you. My name is Richard Medcalf, founder of Xquadrant. I coach some of the most successful and impressive CEOs and executive teams on the planet and help them achieve extraordinary results. And no matter how successful you've been in the past, there's always a whole new level of impact available to you. So, if you're ready to play a bigger game than ever before, I invite you to join us and become an impact multiplier CEO. Gurjodhpal Singh is the chief executive of Tide in India. Tide is the number one SME-focused challenger bank in the UK, has a large market share there, and India has now become its second market, as well as being a major development centre for the bank's platforms. Gurjodhpal joined just a year ago, and he's overseeing what's going to amount to a 3x or 4x increase in the number of employees in just a couple of years. So real growth in the organization, lots of complexity and very high stakes because it's really following in the footsteps of a very high profile and successful UK operations. In this conversation, Gurjodhpal and I get into the importance of mental rhythm. How do you extract yourself from all the demands as CEO on your time? How do you set up clear boundaries to manage those demands and to actually be able to show up on a Monday morning full of energy and creativity? And an executive team is a huge accelerator, but if you get it wrong, it can be a huge drain on time and attention. So what's the question that he asked himself as he recruited and sold to, in many ways, his executive team to bring them on board? This is a great conversation. Enjoy it. Gurjodhpal Singh of Tide, India. Hi, Gurjad, and welcome to the program.
Thank you, Richard, for having me. Pleasure to be here.
Well, yeah, it's my pleasure. You are the CEO of Tide India, and I know that it's the second biggest market for what's a really interesting and fast-growing financial services company. You've got 300 people, I think you said, growing to 1,000 in just about 18 months, probably. So you've seen this, tremendous growth, right? 3 times growth in organizational complexity. I'm sure it's already changed vastly from when you joined, just a year or so ago. And so I'm really looking forward to getting into what's it like to step up into the CEO role of such a fast-growing and quite high-profile company. So thanks for taking the time to explore this with me.
Excellent. I look forward to the discussion, and it's been a challenging transition, but something that I have enjoyed through. And somewhere the pandemic has taken the level of complexity for everybody, all of us, right?
Yes.
Up a notch. So from that standpoint, I think it's been amazing journey, but a challenging one.
Well, so let's dive in. We're going to look at this CEO learning curve, right, as I call it, what you've discovered over the first year or two. So why don't we just start back at when did you join? So first of all, let's just tell everybody what is Tide, make sure we all understand that, and then when did you join, and kind of what were you doing before that kind of helped you secure the CEO role, right? Why were you a great fit for this particular company in this particular time? I think it's really interesting because for people who want to aspire to that CEO role, it's really helpful, I think, to understand, what do I want to have in my portfolio? What skills do I need to be seen as a really credible candidate?
Right. Absolutely. So, Tide is a SME-focused challenger bank. We, are market leaders in the UK, having around 6% market share. And India, is our second market where we are expanding into. We focus on serving SMEs, and we aspire to serve around 25% of SMEs globally. And India, as a market, has around 64 million SMEs, which is 10% of the SMEs in the world. So from that standpoint, India is a very interesting and important market for us. We started out, in India early 2020, and we started out with building a development center out of India, which was based out of Hyderabad. And our plan was to start with India business early 2020, but pandemic hit, which pushed out our plans a bit. And I joined early 21, January 21. I've been in this role for a year, and over 2 years of pandemic, our team has grown to a size of 300. We have a development center in India which builds out our global product stack, and now we have early stage business in India which focuses on SMEs. Now, personally, my background and what helped me get this opportunity is, I, as I was discussing with you, I've spent close to 13 years in financial services and fintech. So the roles, that I started out early in my career were in financial services and were focusing on use of technology in financial services. And, by education, I'm a computer science engineer, and then I did my MBA. So I think this was the right educational combination for me. And I was fortunate to work in organizations where there was a lot of focus on technology to solve for a bunch of issues in financial services. So that helped. And prior to Tide, I spent around 7.5 years at PayU, which is a NASPERS organization. It is the largest payment service provider, in India in e-commerce segment. And here I built a business focused on SMEs from scratch and scaled it up to a thriving, profitable, successful business. And post that, I did a bunch of other things at PayU, NASPERS. I think these roles had a lot of entrepreneurial element to it, right? I had the opportunity to build things, teams, products from scratch, and I think that prepped me up for the role. And as such, NASPERS has a brilliant development program. They really invest in people. So I was fortunate enough to get benefits of that learning curve during my role there. So I think my professional journey essentially prepped me to take larger responsibility, more ownership. And, I think doing that day in, day out essentially helped me, move into country CEO role. So, yeah.
Right. Yeah, I think it's a great point. The entrepreneurial element, right? It's something which, because there's a sense of ownership, right? When you've got to build something, you need to take that full responsibility. And I think it's that almost characterizes chief executives, because as you said, the buck stops with you, right? At some point, it's your thing. You have to completely own it. Despite the fact there's things you can't directly control, you have to commit. And I think that's what I'm hearing in your story. So let's jump into the process. So obviously the business was set up in India, at least in early 2020. You joined a year later. And started to build out, I guess, the business element as well, the commercial element. Say it's a very big market, but it's potentially 10% of the world market for you. What were the biggest surprises that you discovered about being CEO? I know you had those senior roles before, but now you had this kind of large, this growing, complex organization. You had the kind of the ultimate responsibility for the whole, I guess, Indian P&L and everything. What were the biggest surprises that you discovered?
I think the biggest challenge was that I was also practically, the first person to join the India business team as such as well. And the organization was really looking forward to launch, into a new market like India. And along with that, being a CEO, I think it brought in a lot of things onto my table, which starting out may be difficult for someone to handle. I think because the buck stops with you, and everybody wants to engage with you. I think that puts a lot of crunch on your time. And in pandemic, we are working remotely, right? Everything happens over calls, right? So all this put together, I think starting out, this was my biggest challenge: how to prioritize things, how to use my time more efficiently, give it more to tasks which need me more, right? So setting up a mental rhythm and algorithm for that, I think that was important and challenging upfront for me.
So tell me about that then. How did you do that, right? What works for you, do you find? What was that mental rhythm that you put into place?
There are two aspects to it. One is at a personal level, right? You as a leader, you need to soak a lot in, right? You need to process a lot, and you need to get into the rhythm of doing that. So how do you process that in your mind during the working hours, post the working hours? How do you balance your work and life? How do you switch off even when you are not at work? So I think maintaining a balance on a personal level, that becomes very important. That's one.
So just to slow you down on that. So what did you do? How did you do that? Did you decide like what time you were going to leave work? I mean, how did you kind of turn that into reality?
Yeah. I think the first piece was to set up clear time boundaries.
Right.
That was important. Because it's very important to manage your energy levels. All through my career, I have felt that one should look forward to going to work on a Sunday evening. If that is not happening, it's a red flag. So I try and ensure that. Putting proper time in the day. Then also within your calendar, marking time for your own self. You need time to process strategy. You need time to work on strategic vision, maintaining certain relationships in the market, etc. So carve out time for that. You think certain things would happen in a shorter span of time, but they don't. So carving out that time consciously is very important.
Can I just slow you on that point, because I think it's really important to capture. I was talking with a very senior executive in a global tech company just yesterday, and a really incredible person, done a lot of things around the world, moved back to his home market after going around the world doing different jobs, hadn't got a network, managed to become a superstar really, really quickly, even though, he was starting from scratch again in this new area, about to get a new promotion to a very senior level. And he actually asked me at one point, he said, you know what, like, how important is personal well-being? Right? And I kind of dived into it, because obviously that's a sign when someone asks you that question. And I think it was this whole question around, does career success, do I need to maintain this perhaps unsustainable level, to maintain my success? And I think his observation, which was really interesting, with some of the world's most successful people, and I see this in my clients too, they're actually superstars at home, and they're running a marathon as well, and they've got this incredibly successful business, right? And now there's sometimes you scratch the surface and there are other things going on, but I think it's also true that these things can reinforce each other. And as I like to say, businesses are systems, and the energy flows to the lowest denominator. It goes the easiest way, right? The system settles into its easiest state. It's like a river flowing down a hill. The river just goes where it's easy, and that's how it finds its path. And if we don't put in a barrier in our own life, then we just get overwhelmed because the river comes to us. And I think what your point about setting up those clear boundaries about your home life, for example, so that you do have that energy level, and you want to go to work creative and excited, and setting those boundaries within your workday around, you said, vision and relationships, they're really important. So I just want to really focus on that, because I think it's really key. And this leader, again, he said the same thing. It's like, I'm so focused on succeeding, am I actually building the relationships that I'm going to need for the next level? Because it's not the relationships that are going to succeed this quarter, it's relationships that are going to make you successful next year or in the next decade, right? And it's kind of trying to juggle those two things, which I think is the challenge.
Yes, absolutely. So, I am a firm believer that whatever got you here, doing the same thing will not take you forward, right? Somewhere as a professional, you need to process that at personal level. And yes, I fully agree with you. I think, as a human being, if you are a high ownership person at work, you would be high ownership person in every aspect of your life. Be it in your personal family space, be it with respect to your parents, be it with respect to your friends, you will play or want to play a similar role. So from that standpoint, in all these aspects, keeping a balance, I think that's a very important challenge for executives. Yes.
Yeah. Okay, so we were talking about these surprises, and you said, well, the buck stops with me, and everyone wants to engage with me, and so I need to have this mental rhythm. So we've talked about boundaries and setting up times in your diary. Was there anything else around that prioritization, of your day and that mental rhythm that it's worth talking about?
Yeah. So the other set of piece was to build that set of team around you, who could do certain things as well or better than you, and then let them do it, right? So I think that's also important. So through your career, as you mentioned about the gentleman you were talking to, right? The thing is, you need to build relationships, you need to invest in people, and you need to assist people in their growth journey, and those kind of people would stand with you in all hard challenges of professional life, right? So it's like you need to have people who would go to war with you at your word.
It's Richard here with a quick interlude. As part of my coaching and advisory work, I often work with leaders who have recently taken on the CEO role. It's a big leap from the comfort zone of functional leadership or business unit management. And it opens up a whole new set of stakeholders, pressures, decisions, and responsibilities. I found that there are 3 key things that will make a huge difference in those first quarters. Number 1, balancing the operational and the strategic, what I call CEO focus. Number 2, establishing credibility, what I call CEO presence. And number 3, managing stakeholders, those CEO conversations. I've written a short email series that goes into more detail on the transition to CEO and how you can practically sharpen your CEO focus, solidify your CEO presence, and master your CEO conversations. It's insightful and it's entirely free of charge, and you can register for it by going to xquadrant.com/go/curve. Now, back to the conversation. Right. Yeah, I love that. So let me ask you, what did you have to do differently to do that, say in the CEO role, right? Was there something, particular thing that you had to work on in order to do that? Or perhaps was there something you found different trying to build that team when you're the CEO versus trying to build a team when you were lower down in an organization?
Yeah. So, building the team out, the kind of, characteristics you're looking at and the kind of people you're looking at. So I think that becomes important. And at times, there could be challenges in terms of when they can join or, getting to the right person, right? So all those challenges come. But I think as a CEO, when you are recruiting your team, a wrong hire, could set you back. So you need to have that patience, and you need to invest into that process, because you would have so many things going, right? You need to invest into the process. And when you're starting something new in the market, that investment goes a notch higher. You also need to convince the person to join you. You need to sell your plan and vision to that team, right? Because those people are also performers in their own right. Now, how does your story fit into their story of growth? I think that's important. That needs time, investment, energy. And I think, I prioritize that to build out, a team around me, which, which typically would have then three parts. There'll be some people existing in the organization who would come around you. The other is, some people who you have worked in the past with, and who you again get an opportunity to work with. And third is, you also get some people from the external ecosystem, which help you make things more diverse, and you bring people from different organizations, different backgrounds as well. So I think building this strong team, prioritizing building of this team, I think that's important for an executive. Otherwise, it's difficult to stay afloat. You cannot be doing everything yourself. And I think as a leader, you need to have people who could do things in a specific area, I would say, better than you. As a leader, you could do things in multiple areas at a level of competence, but have the patience and guts to bring in people who know much more than you in a specific area. For example, if you're hiring somebody on the legal side of things, right, you need to be able to gauge and bring in a person who would be much better in that area, and align that person to yourself, also motivate him, learn from him, and be able to add value.
So if you were to look back at this journey over the last year or so in the role, what would your top tip be for a new CEO? Or perhaps should we say, what's the one trap that you would recommend that a new CEO watch out for, and avoid at all costs?
Well, don't try to do everything yourself. If your days are stretching to 12, 15 hours, there's a red flag. Take a step back, look at the larger picture. Going very deep into everything may not be humanly possible. So accept that mortality, or about
your human
yourself.
limitations. How accept your human limitations. It's a really good point. Often CEOs get a lot of accolade and acclaim, and you can start to believe your own superhero nature, right? Like, don't worry everybody, I'm here, I'm going to solve all the problems. And that actually is not scalable. This podcast is all about multiplying your impact. And as I said to one of my clients just the other day, who wants to do some big things, I'm like, you want to add, this is a client, he said, he wants to add $1 billion of revenues in the next 3 years to his business, right? Which is an acceleration, which is really phenomenal. And so I said, look, no matter how amazing you are, and he's a very high performer, it's like one high performer with a load of followers can't do this. It's not you, no matter how good you are, you will not be able to do it. You need to multiply your impact. You need to mobilize everybody for this mission, and that's your focus, right? And so there's a level when you can kind of do things, as you said, by yourself, kind of with people helping you, and then there's a level where you have to kind of completely release this energy of everybody else, and not be the Superman or the Superwoman. So I think that's a great point. Let's kind of move on, because I'm just aware of time. We'll go into a little quick fire question round. So just some quick responses really to a few interesting favorites. So what's your favorite quote or saying?
Well, it has to be that Rome was not built in a day. So you need to take time to build something great.
Love it. And what about a favorite app that you use, on your phone that really helps you in your role?
Well, not specifically in my role, but in our life, you use bunch of apps, but the ones I find most relevant are might be a little old school, but Google Apps, a WhatsApp, and a Uber. I think these three,
Mhm.
have been there for a while, but they are still relevant today because they keep solving the problem to next level and add a lot of value.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Okay, what about a book? What's a book that's really influenced you as a person or as a leader?
Yeah. So there's this book by Morgan Housel called "The Psychology of Money." Right. So it's a sharp book, helps you think very differently about not just investing money, but it talks a lot about managing your time, your well-being. In general, it's I think a very good philosophy to read and a good perspective to lead your life. So this is a book I've read multiple times. I go back to it once in a while.
Fantastic. I will put that into the show notes. What about what advice would you give your 20-year-old self?
Well, be persistent, keep at it, keep trying, and you would find a way to where you want to be.
Yeah, great message. And the last little quick fire question is, who's an impactful CEO who's made a difference perhaps in your life, or who inspires you? Who would be a great guest, if you like, for a future episode on this podcast? And what do you admire about them?
Well, one would be Tide Global CEO, Mr. Oliver Prill. So he's somebody who I look up to, and the kind of vision and leadership that he sets. The other would be my mentor from my PayU days, Mr. Anirban Mukherjee. So he's a mentor I look up to, and a visionary, and I really look up to his leadership style as well.
Yeah, it's great. It's these people, as a senior leader, you have an impact in people's lives, right? And it does stay with people, as you said yourself. It makes a difference to your own journey.
And as in my own journey as well, right? It's the impact is also subconscious, right? Just by observing these people, just by observing their styles, right? You might not be meeting or working with them day in and day out, but you learn and you have that impact, and with that translates the responsibility on to you as you become a senior leader. I think one should be conscious of the fact that there are a bunch of people in the team, in the ecosystem, who are looking up to you and learning from you. So I think that's a really good way I feel that it's a really good way to give back in the same terms as I have got from a bunch of mentors throughout my career.
Yeah, I was talking about that yesterday with a friend. This point of imitation. It's who do you surround yourself with, who you observe, learn from, and get inspired by. It's one of the reasons I have a CEO community, right? I've created a CEO community of high-level tech leaders, because these people often, they don't have other people around them who are playing a bigger game than them, who are inspiring them, and sparks fly, right? You create amazing things when you have people in the room, and you're not the smartest person in the room, right? You're not the most experienced leader in the room, and you actually have other people around you to learn from them, to observe and to challenge your thinking. So I think that point of just the osmosis of being in the same room as people who are doing things differently and thinking differently is essential for anyone who wants to multiply their impact.
Yeah, and a very Indian thing, or a Eastern philosophy thing. I think it helps you stay humble. And I think that's very important. Keeping your feet on the ground. I think that's very important. It's getting to a point in your career, or getting success is one hard piece, but keeping your feet on ground and keeping progress from there. I think that's a challenge most of us have to face.
Yeah, for sure. So let's move on. Let's just quickly look to the future before we wrap up. No matter how much we've achieved, there's always the next level to get to. So what's the next level for Tide in India as a business? Where do you go from here?
Well, we look we look forward to add value to a few million SMEs in India over the next 3 years. That's what we aspire to do. Personally, my aspiration of being in fintech, is that it enables you to take financial services to a much larger set of users, much larger set of population. And within this, right, I think micro and small enterprises, they are one segment which have been really underserved by the traditional, financial ecosystem.
Yeah.
And that was one of my aspirations or reasons to take up this role with Tide, because of the potential impact it would have on this segment, and in turn, the impact on society and economy as such. Micro and small enterprises are the backbone of Indian economy. I think adding value there, it brings a lot of professional satisfaction and gratification to me personally.
Yeah, that's lovely. So I love it. You're growing this thing, you're expanding the base of financial services, adding this SMEs in, these micro companies. What are you going to need to do differently in the years ahead or in the months ahead to continue to scale and multiply your own impact? What's the stretch, the growth area for you, would you say?
Well, I think the challenge is to keep the focus on the segment, right? In in fintech, when you are distributing digitally, it's very easy to move into different areas, right? But essentially what it does, it creates the lack of focus. You need to focus on a category. So as an organization, I think what we have done really well is we have kept the focus on solving the problem for a small and micro enterprise. And a bunch of, I think, other players started with that category or came into that category, but they were looking at a more wider set of users, and then you tend to ignore deeper problems. So I think that's one challenge for us as an organization, to keep the focus on enterprises and keep solving for them and bring more value to them. I think once you solve or bring value to them, the kind of growth, not just in India or UK, in other markets as well, I think we could achieve much, or continue to achieve the kind of growth that we have done in the past.
So I'm going to push you a little bit harder. I think it's great. It's a good point, because focus and not getting diluted across multiple segments, I think is really interesting point. But as you grow the company from 300 in India to over 1,000, and you may try to maintain that focus and you grow your customer base, so what do you think, what's going to shift in your behaviors, for example? What might you need to be doing differently in a year's time or 2 years' time compared with what you're doing today as CEO?
Excellent. So, I believe what we have been solving for, right? We are a new player in the market. Today, we've been trying to solve hard for, putting our proposition together and positioning us as a brand in the market, be it an employer brand, be it a brand from a fintech standpoint. Right. Because in fintech, you need to work with a bunch of partners in the ecosystem, right? And you need to have a level of, because it's a matter of trust, right? People, you're dealing with people's money. So that becomes very important. I think, as we grow from a 300 people to 1,000 people company, and, as we have more users in the market, I think this, problem would get solved. And then we would have to, focus on living up to what we have promised in terms of proposition and brand. I think we need to solve for more specific pain points from a SME standpoint. So in India, right, specifically in India market, and problems of SMEs globally are pretty similar, but there are a lot of pain points that we need to solve in terms of compliance, taxation, collections, helping
Right.
people paid for their business, and also on working capital credit for formal credit for micro and small enterprises. So I think all these
Love it.
pieces we need to focus on and bring more value to SMEs. So that's how I see this shift or change.
Yeah, that's really, really helpful. Thank you for that. The shift in what are you solving for? A really interesting way of looking at it. So, final question: if people want to find out more about you or about Tide, how do they do that?
Please come to tide.co and follow us, write to us on LinkedIn, Twitter, or Insta. We do a lot of work with our members. The SMEs that we serve, we call them members because they are members of our group. And we are an organization which has our members as our brand ambassadors. All our campaigns, video and other marketing campaigns, we get our real members as our stars. And if you are a SME or if you are somebody working in fintech, do write to us or follow us on LinkedIn, Insta, and Twitter, and you would really get some decent insights into micro and small enterprise space.
Right, Gurjot, it's been great to speak with you today. Thank you so much for sharing these insights. It sounds like you're in a really interesting position as the company grows and expands and enters this new market. So thanks again for sharing your insights about the CEO learning curve.
Likewise, amazing discussion. And thank you, Richard, for hosting me.
You're welcome. I hope you enjoyed this conversation. Now let's talk about you. When you're in top leadership, when you're in the biggest role of your career, who supports you at a deep level as you lead others? Who helps you multiply your impact and get to the next level? If you're ready to learn more about our content, our coaching, and our community, then visit us at xquadrant.com.